Welcome to BookHuddle. I'm your host, Karen Reader with Readgab. Today our guest is Lynne Kelly. She writes these phenomenal books, A Song for a Whale, The Secret Language of Birds, Three Blue Hearts is the newest, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But Lynn, I would love for you to first take a second and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I live north of Houston in Spring, and I grew up in Houston, and I have been a sign language interpreter for a long time. For a few years, I also taught special education. That's when I got the idea for what became my first book. And anyone who has experience as a teacher knows that it doesn't leave time for anything else, really. So at least for me, it didn't. I never, even
Oh,
after a few years, I never quite caught up. I never felt like I still felt new and felt like I'm never going to catch up with everything like grading.
I
So
seriously don't know how people did it. I used to teach sixth grade full time,
yeah.
and
And I'm
I
so
was just
happy
like,
for people
how?
who do it. But yeah,
How do you
I know.
manage your family and life? Like
Yes.
I was working 12 hours a day and my coworkers would be like, just grade tests. And I was like, I feel like that's a disservice to kids who are, have test anxiety or whatever. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I still would love to know how.
Right. And I'm so happy for people who can do it. And I
Yes,
know there are
we
people who
need
are
them.
teachers
Yeah.
and they write books. I don't
Yes,
know how, I don't know when they sleep, but
they
anyway,
probably don't. Maybe it's
they
just
might
that we
not.
need sleep more
I
than
do,
some
I
people.
definitely need sleep. Yes. So now I'm not saying that so that is a reason I don't teach anymore. Now I'm not saying that, I got the idea to write a book and decided, oh, this is my career now. This is my source of income now, because also
Right.
anyone who's a writer knows you can't depend on that.
All right.
And when if you do get paid, that's unpredictable and it's going to be a while. So before anything shows up. So, but because I had the other job as an interpreter, I went back to that as the only day job, and
Nice.
I do that more often than I was when I was teaching, where it was very very part-time, more of an
Nice.
occasional thing.
Nice. All right, perfect. So we're going to do an author icebreaker to get to know you through a book. So I just discovered this year, and there's like 11 of them, that these fun jungle books that Stuart Gibbs writes. And so this kid solves mysteries that have to do with large animals because, well, he lives at kind of like a large animal amusement park. And so what large animal would you solve a mystery about? Like, tell us what it would be.
Yeah, and I have not read those, but that sounds just like my kind of book. So I need to
Right?
pick those up
They're
after this. I
fantastic.
need to read those. I love large mammals in
Yeah.
particular. That sounds like my scene.
Well, and I read book 11 and none of the other ones. And it
Oh,
won't.
okay. And so you can read them in any order.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
like mini series. I have been thinking, so my first book was about an elephant, about a captive elephant and her keeper. That came out in 2012. Chained, yeah, came out in 2012, and it's been out of print for a while.
Oh no.
I love elephants so much. I
Yeah.
thought, maybe I could write another elephant book.
Nice.
Since that was out kind of a long time ago now, and it's not in print any longer. And they've been a favorite animal of mine for so long.
Nice.
So that would be one I would write about, that if I could choose a large animal to write a mystery about. So it'd be
Nice.
still about an elephant, but a different kind of story than I've written before.
Oh, beautiful. That's fun. That's fun. All right. So let's get into talking about your books then. Tell us about Three Blue Hearts. What is it about?
Oh yes, Three Blue Hearts takes place at a coastal town in Texas. It is a fictitious town, but it's made up of different coastal towns we have. Specifically, one called Indianola, which has been a beachy ghost town since the late 1800s. And I love thinking about abandoned spaces and ghost towns, so I
Yeah.
sort of reimagined it. What if people did go back yet again after they were pummeled by a couple of big hurricanes? Instead of saying, you know what, we're out, this isn't a place to live. What if they did go back again? So it's that kind of town. And this boy, Max, he's a sweet 12-year-old kid. He loves animals, he loves books. He has a dad who is none of that. He has a dad who would actually think showing compassion is a weakness.
Right.
And he's a very imposing character and is very well known in town, kind of a powerful guy. And his expectations for Max, and really others too, that he'll turn out like his dad,
Right.
really bothers him because that's not who he wants to be. And he's tried, and he can't. Not that he's tried to be not compassionate, but he's tried to be more of a kid that his dad would want. Like he's tried all the sports, he's tried to be good at them. He's just not. And so, and he just doesn't like, they don't like the same things.
Right.
And so I'd thought about what's that like for a kid who is just a good kid and maybe has, the adults around him, specifically a parent, if they, love them, of course, but maybe don't love the things they stand for. How do you
Right.
navigate that kind of relationship? So he also has some unwanted attention in that his most embarrassing mistakes have had a huge audience.
Oh,
So
right.
over the summer, he's at this weird beach town with his mom while she does some work for grad school. So it's a welcome vacation away from those expectations and that attention. And he can sort of be someone else. It's refreshing to be in a place where no one knows who he is yet. And he figures, well, the problem is if they don't like him, then he knows, well, I can't blame it on, oh, they just don't like my dad, or
Right.
they are teasing me because of the mistakes I've made. If they don't like me here, it's because they just don't like me. So, but he's looking forward to this vacation away from all of that.
Oh,
And when they arrive, it's not a great start to the summer. The power is out because of
right.
one
The
of the many
storm.
storms that they have to weather. And he is though walking the beach the next morning and comes across an injured octopus on the sand that
Right.
he at first is thinking is a deflated volleyball, and then gets closer and realizes, oh, that volleyball has arms and one is reaching out to me. So looks probably what most of us would think, this octopus is beyond help. And it really seemed like she was. But Max, though he doesn't know what to do, he knows he can't walk away. So he has to figure out what to do. He's the only one around, and though he knows a lot about animals, he doesn't know how do you help one that's an octopus that's washed up on the beach. But he has to figure out what to do. And from there, well, that starts him on the new journey he'll be on for the rest of the book, meeting these wonderful friends and hanging out with them at this wildlife center where he gets to help take care of this injured octopus.
Love it so much. I love that the last three books that you've done are just, and I love that first you do the story that you're talking about the kid, and then you get this animal in. Is that what came first? You said that you were thinking
Um,
about the kid, or did octopus
In
come?
this case, yeah, in this case, it was like the setting and then the character. Because I'd been thinking about this cool setting we have with this beachy ghost
Yeah.
town. And then had a couple different characters I was working on. Before though, with the other books, so Chained, and Song for a Whale for sure, the animal came first.
Okay.
So I wanted to write about this captive elephant. And then with Song for a Whale, I learned about this whale who can't um, communicate with other whales because he
Oh,
sings at a higher frequency than most do. And then came up with, all right, now who's the character who will connect to him and why? Oh, it's someone who must feel the same way, alone, even in a crowd. So with this one, I had Max in mind for a while. I knew this setting. I also had his friend Ollie Mae in mind, in a character in her own book. So these were two
okay.
separate stories.
Nice.
So her story in here she's a strong secondary character,
Yeah.
since I mashed the stories together and probably pieces of others I'd been working on. So her now backstory, it used to be part of a separate novel. So, and my editor had pointed out in revisions, sometimes this girl, Ollie Mae, is overshadowing Max, who's your main character. And I said, oh, there's a reason. She has main
She
character
has a
energy because she
story.
used to be. Yeah. So I didn't want to tone him or tone her down, but I just had to make Max stronger in those scenes.
There you go.
So I've been thinking of these kids and their stories, and I didn't know for a long time what would be the animal in Max's story. I
Wow.
visited a lemur sanctuary and thought, oh, these are so interesting. Maybe it's this, maybe one
Nice.
escaped or something. And then I've been reading more about octopuses, like Cy Montgomery's Soul of an Octopus, and watching documentaries, National
Yes.
Geographic articles and such, and seeing how fascinating they were. And then it was several years ago, I saw this image of an octopus in a parking garage in Miami.
Oh my
This
gosh.
was, and I looked back to see, just recently looked back to see what hurricane was that. It wasn't even a hurricane. It was just a weirdly high tide. So
Oh,
they have what they call their king tide,
uh-huh.
which they just had again, like last week or so. And then I was seeing video of a shark swimming in a parking lot. So same, just high king tide they have. But that image of an out of place octopus really stuck with me. And we look for those as writers, these images or these ideas that stick with us.
Nice.
And so then that's what I gave to Max, a sighting not as out of place as a parking garage, but this
Right.
octopus that's out of the water, and on the beach. And he is able to, this one won't be beyond help because there wouldn't be a story. So this one will fare better than the one in the parking garage, but that's where that came from is, reading about them, learning more about them. So I think it was sort of brewing, back there in my head. And then
Nice.
seeing this image of the out of place octopus, that's when I decided to give that sighting to him to kick off his new journey.
Nice. So tell us a couple things you learned about octopuses. Like,
Oh, so when I've done presentations to schools recently, I've mentioned they do have some amazing superpowers I would love to
right,
have. They are experts at camouflage, not just the color, but the texture. And like they can just become, part of a coral reef, it looks like, and you
right,
can't tell there's anything there, or a clump of seaweed or the seafloor. The wildest thing about that is they are colorblind. So I'm looking at them and going, well, how do you know what color to turn
right?
into? I don't get it.
Yeah,
So it seems like their skin sort of sees the color. So that superpower, I thought that would be great if I feel like I say something dumb and where you just sort of wish you could hide. Well, then you could just
blend into the
I am the wall.
wall.
I have become the wall. But what I would have though, that what I would rather have is their brain because we could truly multitask and not just lie to ourselves and say, I can scroll on my phone and write and watch TV and play this
Yes,
game and read. No, we truly could because they have a donut shaped central brain. So that's their
right,
main brain, but then a branch comes off into each arm. So 8 branches off of this donut. And so it's like each arm has its own brain in a way. So they often the whole brain will work
yeah,
together, but they
that's
can
incredible.
operate independently. So an arm can be totally focused on hunting for food, another one gathering shells to build a den, another one, punching a fish or a crab that gets too close. So if we had that, we truly could
Wouldn't that be incredible?
multitask. We could write 8 books at once. We could, write a book totally focused with this brain, this branch, and then do, a few other things with the other branches there.
Oh, beautiful. I would love that. Thank you very much. I'm going to be an octopus
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
So what appeals to you most about taking a child and having it connect to an animal? Why does that work for you?
Yeah, those are how I've thought of the stories so far. I love thinking about fascinating animals, what their lives are like, how they're like us or how they're not like
Right,
us. How do they communicate? How do they know if everything, how do they know what they do?
right.
How do they know what to do? And so then thinking about, what do they have in common with us and how could that connect to a character? And I think that kind of story too helps us tap into our own empathy and our own compassion because we see, this character connecting to an animal. And even if it's something that's so different from us, like an octopus, I mean, you can hardly find anything more different. But how can we still, why does this character care for this animal? Why do we still, want to help it out when it needs us? So I love those things in stories that, tap into those human emotions and that empathy.
Beautiful. All right, let's talk about Max. So you're saying, his dad, because his dad is also Max. And
Yes.
so the power
Doesn't
of that
help.
name,
Yeah.
what was that?
Yeah. So it doesn't help that he's
Yeah,
that he looks like his dad and they have the same name, but that's where the
yes.
similarities end. So everyone just expects he's, going to grow up to be just like dad.
Yeah, and his need to reinvent himself, right? And then how he feels about that as it goes along. And then he has to have this feeling of self-love and self-acceptance, but then also separating himself from his
Yeah.
dad to do so. And I, on a very small level, I can relate because being named Karen, but years ago.
Oh no.
So
Yeah.
like before even
Yeah.
2020.
Before it was a
So
thing. Yeah.
it was like an old lady name.
Okay.
And growing up, nobody else was named Karen. And also, my middle name is Louise, which is after my grandmother. And my mom doesn't even like her. They have a
Oh,
terrible
oh
relationship.
no.
Well, she's passed now, but they have a
Oh,
terrible relationship. And I was like, why'd you even name me after her?
yes.
And so for a long time, I just was like, it's my middle name. Who cares? And so I had to come to like love my name,
Yeah.
Karen and Louise. And so by the time Karen became an insult, I was
Yeah.
already like, whatever, I've
It's
already
fine.
reconciled myself to
Yeah.
Karen, and I am Karen and I love it. And that definition means
Yes.
nothing to me.
Yeah.
And so luckily I had gone through them. But so let's talk about that for kids and the need to have identity with a name or with a family member.
Right. So he is thinking, in addition to having a vacation away from home and in this place where no one knows him, he takes it as a chance to really try to be someone else. And what he doesn't know is he's just becoming more of his authentic self
Yes.
throughout the journey. So he doesn't have to try to separate himself from his dad. He just is a separate person and they have different wants and different values, and he'll come to realize those are worthy too. The things he loves are worthy also. But he's thinking for a while he needs to set that name aside, and it's not even his, it's his dad's. So he has to pick something
Right.
else. So he's gonna be Milo for the summer. Nobody knows any different. He can be someone else. And then we see it's much later than it hits him. He doesn't feel like he's being quite honest with his friends, even though maybe, oh, it's just a name, not a big deal. But he feels like, no, he does need to tell them,
Right.
even though it wouldn't have much meaning for them, not being, from the community he's from. But he feels like he does need to tell them who he really is. And then it hits him then too. He's not been someone else. He's just been himself and more of himself without those expectations around. So that'll be part of his journey, that it doesn't matter that his name is his dad's also. He can
Yes.
claim that name also and be his own person.
Right. Right. Love it. And I love the journey he goes on in his relationship with his dad and how that changes. Because in the beginning, he's just like, he'll try to tell dad something, and dad will be like, nope, it's this.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to go
Yeah.
eat. I can't be seen at a food truck.
Yes.
And so that later, as he comes to understand himself, he's also able to understand a different relationship with his father, and that's powerful.
Right, and he's still his own, compassionate self. He will have to, he'll have to stop just sort of being resigned that, oh, this is the way it is, and nobody says no to my dad. Never mind if you're a kid, if you're an adult, you don't either. He's just
Right.
used to that. Nobody says no to him. He gets his
Right.
way,
Yeah.
and that's just how it is. So he'll have to come around to thinking it doesn't have to be that way. And he's still a good and respectful kid, but he'll have
Right.
to understand that he has the strength to say no if there's something he's being asked to do something that he knows is wrong, and there's something else that he promised to do that is more important at the moment.
Yes.
He has something he needs to do, and time is of the essence, and he's going to help a friend, and he can still remain his kind, respectful self, but also stand up and say no when he
Yes.
needs to.
Yes. And I love those friends, and I love the beautiful just metaphors throughout the book, like the storms, it starts with a storm and the storm affects
Yeah.
the octopus, but then each of these friends have their own storms that they're going through
Yeah.
and the way that it affects them. And so let's talk about friendship and how that helps strengthen individuals and as a group through the storms of life.
Right. Yeah. So he does meet some wonderful friends here after not being sure, are there going to be any kids in this place at all? It's kind of a small community here. So he does meet these wonderful friends, and they all do have their own things going on. So they kind of bond over that. There are things they don't come right out and say until later, but they all have things that they're wrestling with. And they're so different too. So these are quite different characters. We can see the contrast in Max being, sort of quiet and there to help the octopus and observing. And then, Ollie, swoops in like a tornado, threw her into the house. And that's kind of how she is all the time. Just this sort of, spinning energy. So quite different from Max, and he's not sure what to think about her and feels like he needs time to catch up to her,
Right.
like to pick up the conversation. So I love that these friends are such different people, but they do have this bond together, and they do share the interest in caring for these animals who are here. There's the octopus, of course, but then there are other animals here at this wildlife center slash vet clinic. So they have that. They are all kind kids who care about these animals, but they have their own interests also. So there are times they're not, they're not always together. Working on the same thing, but they do have that connection here, and that they're all they are good friends, and that really helps him see too that, oh, the things he loves are valuable. It is good to care for these animals and to just be a good friend, and to apologize when you know that you've done something wrong,
Yeah.
and it hits him. Well, if what he's been taught is true, that it's weak to apologize, he's wondering, well, then why does it need all my strength to do it? So how
Right.
can those things both be true? And he thinks back to Ursula the octopus, seemingly using the last of her strength to reach out to him with one weak
Yeah.
arm. So can he do that? So that's a wonderful part of its journey too, is being a good friend and
Yes.
meeting these two that really help him along in this journey without even knowing it, really, that he's becoming a stronger person.
Yes. And like I feel so much that he learns, he's put so much into caring for the octopus. And then on that journey of caring for somebody else, he realized there's room for caring for himself. There's room for caring for friends. And like
Yeah.
I think he has a hard time balancing it for a while, but to learn that it's possible to
Yes.
show up in
Yes.
all ways
Hmm.
and that there's room for compassion and seeing what other people need. And I thought that was so beautiful
Yes.
in your book. I loved it so much.
Oh, thank you. And being friends despite being different in many ways,
Yes.
having their different
Yeah.
interests and different personalities.
Yeah. Because often they that's what's taught on developing friendship is find commonalities, and they do have that big commonality,
Hmm.
their love for animals
Yeah.
and the ocean, and they go and explore like the history
Yes.
of that sunken town.
Yeah.
They have like that curiosity, but there are certain things that are different about them that it doesn't keep them from being friends. And I think
Right.
that's
Right.
important for kids to remember that, yeah, there's an importance of having commonality, but you're going to have differences and you can
Hmm.
keep going.
Yes.
That's beautiful. So loved it. So I think you've branded yourself as a animal book kind of person now. So can you tell us what's coming next? Are you doing another animal book for us?
Right. I don't know for sure that every book will have an animal, but probably in some way, even if it's not the central animal to the
Right.
story. So yeah, well, I don't know what's coming next, but I've been working on a few different things. Some nonfiction. I'm interested in writing some nonfiction
Ah,
stories too.
nice.
So we'll see if that goes anywhere. But so many wonderful things about animals that I could also write a nonfiction work about, and or things I learned about nature or about the world. That I would just love to tell in a different kind of story. I was working on another middle grade novel, and I still am, but there's one I'm stepping away from to figure out what is it that's not working for me. I'm thinking it might be maybe the opposite of what I did for Three Blue Hearts, in where I
Okay.
put a few stories together. I think there might be a big piece of this next one that does not belong there, and I need to take it out, and it could be a future story of its own.
Nice.
And or I need to get to know that character better. So I'm doing that. I really need to know the character.
Nice.
But
Or maybe
meanwhile,
you're
then
missing a
of course
character that needs to go be discovered.
it could be, yeah. And the main character, I think there are still things I don't know about her that I need to. So I still have that kind of on the back burner now. But meanwhile, I did get an idea for another story, so I'm working on that. And I'll say this much: I've been thinking about sharks a lot,
Oh,
for both
wow.
fiction and nonfiction ideas. So I mean, it seems like there are so many books about sharks, but
But
there's
they're
always
so
more.
appealing.
There's always more we can know. There's always
There
more we're
is.
learning, and so that's where I'm going there, and then I'll figure out what's up with the other one I was working on, and that might be two different books that I have
Yeah,
to
nice,
work on
nice.
then. Yeah,
Well, yeah, there's always a re like there's so many books about dragons. I just read another
right.
phenomenal
Yeah,
dragon book, and so
and
it's not like they're
they
ever
have
gonna
their
stop
fans.
writing about
Yeah,
dragons.
yeah,
So go for
right.
the shark. I love it. So is there a species of animal that you feel a special connection to that you could tell us about that animal and why?
I have always loved the large mammals like elephants and whales. So elephants in particular, that I love that we can see the similarities we have to them, and they are so intelligent. And we could see that they're protecting their calves. They hear the roar of a lion or something um, dangerous, some threat nearby, and they all encircle the calves. Doesn't matter that they're not the mom of this calf, the herd is going to encircle them, and they're going to protect their young ones. And learning more about their communication, and we can hear how they communicate with each other. And then there are people who study them who can put together then sort of an elephant dictionary, observing that, okay, when they make this sound, here's what's happening, or then here's what happens, here's the response. And so, thinking about their lives and how they care for their families, and ways that they're similar and different to
Nice.
humans. And then whales are actually pretty closely related to them. They're harder to observe, being in the deep ocean, but we can hear their communication too and see that they have some of the same behaviors, swimming with the calves in a safer area, or in between
Right.
adults or on the outside.
Oh, I love it. And I love that just looking at an animal, we can be like, oh, that's cool, where people go to the zoo, where we
Yeah,
just see
yeah,
images and it's like, that's cool. But then learning so much about
yeah,
how smart they are and what else goes
yes,
into that. Oh, and
yeah,
I love that you said there's similarities to humans. Can you tell us, because you wrote about octopuses and Three Blue
yeah.
Hearts, can you tell us some similarities to humans there?
I don't know if there are any, honestly. You would think there's something, but I mean, I've just seen recently that scientists are thinking maybe they do interact with one another more than we thought. They
Okay.
they do tend to be solitary. They usually don't interact with one another as far as we've seen, but now we are seeing times that there are, really hospitable places in the ocean where there will be a community of them. It
Yeah.
could be on a whale fall, because in the deep ocean, it's hard to find food. But then if a whale dies and sinks to the ocean's floor,
Oh,
then there's a buffet that'll last for decades. So they might congregate there, or
nice.
might be near deep ocean vents where it's warmer. So then we see them there, but are they interacting?
Hmm.
Um, Probably not. But then there are times now where it seems like, depending on the species, maybe they do interact more than we thought.
Right.
But they're about as different from humans as you can get. So I didn't
Right.
really see any similarities. I mean, I mentioned how the brains are so different.
Yes.
They
That curiosity, though, maybe like the
Yeah, the
curiosity of a
curiosity, that could
child and
be,
then of an
right.
octopus
That could be. They are very curious. They are intelligent. It's just in a different
in a
way
very
than
different
than
way.
we
Yes.
are. But that's a reason it's hard to keep them in captivity. Besides that, they're very strong and very squishy. They can get very
Squishy.
compact. So anything that their, parrot beak inside their mouth can fit through, they can get their body through.
That's
So
so
that's one reason
incredible.
it's hard to keep them in captivity, and that they are so strong, but they are intelligent and they will get bored. So they do have to be that could be the maybe one similarity I can think of, that we need things to do.
Yes.
So, or we'll find things to do. So for
Yes, we
them, yeah,
will.
people who keep them in captivity, like at a public aquarium or at home, if they know what they're doing and they can keep an octopus, then they'll know, besides having a nice sealed tank, and no escape routes, you need to give them puzzles, and a puzzle can be a crab inside of a sealed jar, and
Yeah,
they'll figure out how to open it. And there are times, and this will be in the book too, there are times that they will, for something difficult to solve, they'll just step back and look at it for a while,
right.
like they're studying it, and their brain is putting together how to do this, and then they'll swoop in and then take off the lid of the jar or solve that puzzle. So that's
Something we could
that's
learn
about the
from
only
them.
thing I
Sometimes
could
it's
think of.
time to step back, like
Yes, yeah,
Ursula
step
does.
back
She
and take a
steps
look.
back.
Yes.
Does Max do that? Does he make that connection that he needs to step back and look at his problem?
It is
Or
something he I don't know if he I don't remember if he does bring it up about himself, but it
that
could
he
be that
notices
he
about her?
no, oh no, he notices about Ollie that okay, that this is, maybe you're like Ursula in this way, because she's looking back at, what the event that's in her recent backstory, and did she do the right thing? And so he mentioned, so maybe you needed time away and you needed to step back and
Step
see
back.
it. I don't even know if he brings it up for himself, but he does that, though, being away from home, being away from his dad,
Yes.
he does see things more clearly. So I know that when he's at the zoo near the end, this isn't too much of a spoiler or anything, but when he is putting things together, he's thinking of it as a puzzle piece falling into place,
Nice.
and he is seeing things more clearly with some distance.
It didn't need to be said. He steps back just like Ursula.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Lovely. Lovely. All right, Lynn, can you recommend a favorite children's book for us?
Oh, yeah, there are so many, it's hard to
Yes.
pick. One that was like an old favorite of mine was Charlotte's Web, and
Yeah.
that's still around. I think kids are still reading Charlotte's Web. And no surprise, it's an animal book. And I would say one that's more recent, it's not super recent, but I think is going to be around forever, is The One and Only Ivan. So really, you can't go
Yeah.
wrong with any Catherine Applegate book.
Oh
But
my
that's one
gosh.
that is really a perfect book. Feels like it's written in verse. It has that feel, even though it's not in
Doesn't she just
verse,
have
but
such beautiful language?
yes. And I
Yes.
think because Ivan is a nice, he's a concise narrator, and he
Yes.
addresses this at the beginning, that humans are so wordy. So I think because he's such a
Good point.
concise narrator, it almost has this poetic feel to it,
Yes.
and lots of white space too, as a novel in verse has, that's
Yes.
inviting to even reluctant readers.
Yes.
And it's a novel length book, but doesn't feel intimidating. And how to get that perspective across from the animal's point of view. And I bring up too when I talk about my own books that, yeah, I think of the animal in the book, and now who's a character who will connect to that animal? How are they similar, or why do they care about this animal? And I'll mention now some amazing authors like Catherine Applegate or Sarah Pennypacker, if they decide to write about this animal, it might be all from the animal's point of view. And I would be a fan of that. I would read that book too, but I always think about it as a human kid, say 10 or 12 years old, who has that connection, and that'll be our point of view character. But
Yes.
I'm a fan of those too, and that's a different skill to get across that
Right? And
animal
to
point
be
of
able
view
to
that we
do it
connect
in
to.
so few words, because it
Yes,
feels like often middle grade, it's just like so thick, but I feel
yes.
like you have the same talent there with Catherine
Oh, thank
Applegate, that
you.
it doesn't have to be this big bulk, but
Right.
that you wrap it all up nicely, it's all there, and it's beautiful, and it's not a brick.
Okay,
So
yes. I
yeah,
do
I
have a
think
few you'll see a few chapters in Song for a Whale that are told from the animal's point of view. Because it's more
nice.
like he's not, I wouldn't call him a point of view narrator, but there are very occasional chapters we're sort of checking in with the whale and
Oh,
seeing
nice.
what he's doing. And sometimes we'll see how it parallels with what Iris is doing, and
Yes.
how their paths converge and diverge along the way. And so those chapters I wrote, they a little more poetically,
Yes.
so it's a different sound of a narrator. So they were even more like poems when I first turned it in.
Yes.
And I don't remember if it was my agent or my editor who said, "Can you write the same content but more in prose?"
Nice.
So, and those were really the first chapters I wrote, because I was thinking of the whale first to get into the
Yes.
story before I came up with, all right, now who's this character?
Well,
And so I
yeah.
did expand it to more prosy chapters, but they still have a poetic feel to them, I think.
Yes, and I think it does. And I feel that way about Kate DiCamillo, and like you're saying, Catherine Applegate,
Yeah.
that it just gets the language that you have. And in Three Blue Hearts, I was listening to it, and I just thought, I love listening to this because it just feels like beautiful language and the way it flows. And I think that's why the nonfiction bits about the octopuses work so well, that nobody feels like it's a book report. They're not sitting there
Oh,
like,
right.
okay,
Yes.
octopus, great.
Right.
But just because of the language choice that you use and how beautiful it just is fascinating. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And it helps too, because yeah, I've mentioned to kids too. I can't, I so want to just throw in fun facts because I want to tell everyone how fascinating this
Guess what
animal is, but
I
I
learned?
can't just throw them in. I need to have it, weave into the story. It's got to
Yes.
be important to the character somehow.
Wonderful.
So it helps that the character is learning about the animal along with us. So
Yes.
if the kid was already an expert, he wouldn't be mentioning these fascinating things he's learning so much. It
Yes.
would be harder to do, but it helps that they are learning about the animal along with us, so they can help it out in the best way, or track it down, however they can, or whatever it is they need to know, where so we as the reader learn along with them too. And they are things that are important to the story, as it turns out. So it's not like I don't just throw them in there because they're fun, as much as sometimes I really want to get these facts in there because they're just so cool
Yeah.
to learn about these. Yeah.
Oh, well, I love it. I think it's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank
I'm
you.
excited to see what you come up with next.
Me too. Yeah, we'll see.
Yes.
We'll
Thank you
see
so
what
much
happens.
for
Yeah.
talking to us today, Lynn.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I hope that you enjoyed hearing from Lynn Kelly today. Hey, can I ask you a favor now? If you like my podcast, BookHuddle, could you take a second and go on over to your podcast platform where you scroll down at the bottom and you leave a rating and a review? That really helps BookHuddle to grow, and I would really appreciate it.